Welcome back to another edition of Baseball for Maniacs. Keeping with the trends of my Phillies players previews before spring training and into the regular season, we're going to start off with Edmundo Sosa. Love me some Edmundo Sosa. And the reason I picked him is similar to the trend of what I've been doing is I want to preview a player that might possibly get traded. Some of you guys might be thinking, why on earth would the Phillies trade Edmundo Sosa? I'll get into that later in the video, but I started off with Alec Bohm because I thought wishful thinking. There was a chance that Dave Dombrowski would sign Eugenio Suarez, trade Alec Bohm to. I kind of wanted to get his player preview done before that were to happen. Unfortunately, that same night, Eugenio Suarez signed a 1 year, yes, a 1 year, $15 million deal with the Cincinnati Reds. I would have loved to have Eugenio Suarez on the team, but you guys can check that out in the Eugenio Suarez to the Reds reaction video. And then yesterday I did Nick Castellanos because I think there's no shot in hell he will be coming back to the Philadelphia Phillies in any fashion, whether we trade him or we outright release him. That's going to happen in the coming days. And then Edmundo Sosa is my next guy. So before I get into the trade speculation, I'll do that after I go over his 2025 season. So it was his best year in Philadelphia. He had a 2.3 WAR. He batted .276 with 11 homers for a 777 OPS with a 109 OPS plus. For some of you guys that might not know what OPS plus is, that is 100 is league average. So if you hit anywhere above that, which Edmundo Sosa did, 109, essentially he's 9% better than the average major leaguer. And the thing that Edmundo Sosa does very well is he plays his role to a T, to where sometimes when I think he plays every day, he gets kind of exposed. And we can kind of look back to the 2024 season when Trey Turner started off the year hot. He was on his way to an MVP. Unfortunately, he had the hamstring injury to where Edmundo Sosa was the everyday shortstop up until Trey Turner came back, and he played phenomenal. What Edmundo Sosa did in that short stint was it was exactly who Edmundo Sosa is and what value he brings to the team. But if you remember, towards the end of that, like that 1 to 2 week period between him playing shortstop every day and Trey Turner coming back, he did kind of struggle. And I think the stats kind of prove that to where his splits, to where in 2025, he had an 895 OPS against lefties, and he had a 681 OPS against righties, right? Which is not bad. Like if you mash lefties and you're almost league average on the right side, you're a good player combined with his defensive abilities. He's a natural shortstop, but of course he's played more third base due to Bryson Stott playing in 2022. And then Trey Turner, obviously Trey Turner is going to be the shortstop, but Edmundo Sosa plays a damn good second base and a damn good third base. I just think if he were to be given the role of an everyday player, those numbers would go down a little bit. And it makes sense, right? Some players just built for short sprints, short like pockets of playing time. Some players are built for every day. So it's like you have to have both, right? So I think 2025 was typical Edmundo Sosa, but he played it a little bit above his pay grade, in my opinion. And that goes into the trade speculation of why I think there's a real chance that Edmundo Sosa gets traded before spring training. Now, at the trade deadline, and this comes from Joel Sherman from the New York Post, the Yankees were very interested in Edmundo Sosa at the trade deadline. Now, they pivoted and got Ryan McMahon, Jose Caballero, so they're not going to be in for Edmundo Sosa anymore. But it just shows you that around the league, there is some like trade value with Edmundo Sosa to where I believe certain teams view him as an everyday player to where if the Yankees were going to do it, there has to be a few other teams that I believe would let Edmundo Sosa get a shot to play every day. And this is his last year with the Philadelphia Phillies. He becomes an unrestricted free agent after the year. And like I said, I think there's going to be one or two teams that think Edmundo Sosa can play every day and they don't have to essentially pay the price of an everyday player, because in free agency the teams are going to be like, well, you're a platoon guy, like you're a spark plug, you're a good player, but you're not really an everyday player, to where maybe they can pay a little bit less than market value. And then the thing about Edmundo Sosa is, and any player really, if he has a chance to play every day, he's going to take that opportunity, whether it's with a bad team like the Rockies, the Marlins, the Pirates. Like, you have to do what's best for your career, to where I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility of the Philadelphia Phillies looking to get some value for Edmundo Sosa before he walks for nothing in free agency. And what do the Phillies need to improve on? Well, a lot, but in the sense of like being realistic of what you can essentially get for Edmundo Sosa on the open market, I think that fits well into our need currently of starting pitching depth. Because if you look at the rotation right now, Wheeler's not going to be ready to start the year. So essentially, it's going to be Christopher Sanchez, Jesus Luzardo, Aaron Nola, Andrew Painter, and Taijuan Walker. Now, if Zach Wheeler comes back and he's the Zach Wheeler we all think he is, Taijuan Walker is going to slide into that bullpen role, similar to what he did last year. But after Taijuan Walker, what do you really have in the minor league level? I guess you got Gene Cabrera, you got Bauman that we got from the trade with the Royals, but it's pretty thin. It's to where Edmundo Sosa, his current role in the 2026 Phillies is exactly what he's been doing. He's going to be the lefty platoon for Bryson Stott. So he'll hit against lefties. Bryson Stott will hit against righties. To where I firmly believe if there's a chance for you to get a controllable starting pitcher with some upside, I think you have to do it. And also, I think Bryson Stott can play every day against left-handed pitching. I think he hasn't been given a real shot just because Edmundo Sosa has been playing so well to where like Rob Thompson has to put the best lineup out there. But let's get into a couple teams that I think might be in the market for Edmundo Sosa. First team, Pittsburgh Pirates. So they were in on Eugenio Suarez. There was a report that they gave him 2 years instead of 1, but Suarez really wanted to go back to Cincinnati. He played there before. He loved it there. So it made sense why he chose Cincinnati. But it proves that the Pittsburgh Pirates are in the market to upgrade their infield. And what better way than an ownership like the Pittsburgh Pirates to look at a $7.5 million contract for an everyday role? I think it just fits it to a T. Now, I looked up their starting infield depth on MLB.com. So any Pirates fans that think I don't know what I'm talking about, please correct me because I'm a Phillies guy. Like that's what I lock in on every single day. So when I talk about any other team, if I'm wrong, please let me know because when I teach you guys about the Phillies, I want you guys to teach me as well about Major League Baseball and the other teams. I want to learn just as much as you guys. But they got Nick Gonzalez listed as their shortstop. He had a 661 OPS. Not good. Mundo Sosa is a much better player. And at third base, they have Jared Trio, who had a 667 OPS. Again, Edmundo Sosa is a better player. Now, they do have Connor Griffin, their top prospect, one of the top prospects in Major League Baseball, but they have him listed as a shortstop / outfielder. So I don't know where they see him as more as a shortstop or an outfielder. But nevertheless, even if Connor Griffin is their starting shortstop, it still leaves a hole at third base because they traded Key Brian Hayes to the Reds at the deadline, to where I think he most certainly still would fit with the Pittsburgh Pirates on a pretty decent deal. And the only person I saw that might be a possible trade candidate was their 10th ranked prospect, Thomas Harrington. He's a right-handed pitcher, and he's ranked 10th in their farm system. Now, he had a bad 2025, but I looked at the stats. It was in limited action. So in 2024, he had a 2.61 ERA over 3 levels in about 118 innings. He's 24 years old. So essentially, if you could make that trade, you do that every day of the week. Because one, you get a controllable starting pitcher to where you have more years with him in your franchise, and then it just adds to the starting pitching depth. Because I think the Phillies, and they've said it, they want to add to their depth. Now, you can say they can go out and get a Chris Bassett, maybe a Justin Verlander, or a Max Scherzer. I would love any one of the three, but the problem with that is, in my opinion, is those guys are going to be looking for guaranteed innings in the starting rotation. Like from March to October, they want to pitch. And like I said, if Zach Wheeler comes back to his form, I don't think there's a spot in the rotation for him. Because if Zach Wheeler's healthy, it's Wheeler, Sanchez, Luzardo, Nola, and Painter. You could maybe say, well, bring back Walker Buehler. I wouldn't mind that on like a 1 year, $7-8 million deal to where he can kind of be that swingman role. Once Zach Wheeler gets back. Now me personally, I kind of think Walker Buehler's cooked. But if you're signing someone as your 6th or 7th starter, beggars can't be choosers. So if they can make that trade for a controllable young starting pitcher to where he's making league minimum, I would do that in a heartbeat. And then the other team that I think has a real chance to trade for Edmundo Sosa is the Boston Red Sox, because the Red Sox have had an interesting offseason to say the least. Ryan will attest to that. But what they do have is a unfathomable amount of starting pitching depth to where I think it's completely in the realm of possibility that they look to increase their infield depth and trade from what they already have. Because when you're a Major League Baseball team, sometimes you got to trade from your strength to upgrade your weaknesses, right? And right now they have Marcelo Meyer slided at third base, and then second base is a David Hamilton and I think a Romy Gonzalez platoon. If I'm wrong, please correct me. I'm sure Ryan will definitely. But when they missed out on Bregman, and a lot of people were clamoring for them to get Eugenio Suarez, and they missed out on that, I don't think they're too comfortable with their infield depth. And I think Marcelo Meyer fits better as a second baseman than a third baseman, to where if the Red Sox get Edmundo Sosa for that 1 year, see if he can play every day, I think that would be very valuable to the Red Sox. And if you want to keep Meyer third, you can even push Edmundo Sosa to second base. Now, what would we get back in return? There's one guy I really want. It's Kyle Harrison. And if you guys don't know who Kyle Harrison is, he was a top prospect in the Giants organization. He was a lefty. I think he made his debut against the Phillies in 2023. It was an August game. Bryce Harper had a homer off of him. Way to welcome the young kid to the league. But he has never really lived up to his prospect hype. He was included in the Rafi Devers trade. He pitched fine between AAA, to where I think if you can get a guy with that kind of upside for Edmundo Sosa, who's on the last year of his deal, I think you make that trade every day and twice on Sunday. But I don't think Edmundo Sosa for Kyle Harrison gets the deal done straight up. So I added another starting pitcher into that trade that we get back, and that's Patrick Sandoval. So Patrick Sandoval signed a 2-year, $18.25 million contract last offseason, but that was under the notion he was going to miss the entire 2025 season with injury, to where he's slated to make a little over $9 million in the 2026 season. And back on my point, with how much starting pitching depth the Red Sox have, I think they would be looking to get off that Patrick Sandoval contract. Now, granted, it's only $9 million, but if he's not going to fit into your plans at all, like what's the real point of having Patrick Sandoval on the opening day roster if he's not going to be in your rotation for $9 million? And Ryan will attest to this. The Red Sox play like a small market team, and that's due to ownership. They should be spending like the Dodgers, like the Yankees, like the Phillies, but they're simply not doing that. So I think there's a real chance they would look to move Patrick Sandoval. And I think that will get the deal done, because you're giving up a pitcher in Kyle Harrison with a lot of upside, but also he doesn't fit in the plans, to where if you can trade for Edmundo Sosa to where he can affect your big league roster this year, and you're giving up two starting pitchers to where they're not really going to be in the fold for the rotation, I think it's a win-win scenario, because those two guys coming to us, that solves our starting pitching depth right there. You got 7, 8 guys now, to where if Nola struggles and he gets injured like he did last year, if God forbid Jesus Luzardo back injuries flare up like they have in the past, we need to have someone be able to fill in and eat those innings. Because here's the thing, the Mets are really good. If the Braves stay healthy, they're really good. The National League is a gauntlet, to where if your starting rotation cracks and you don't have anyone to fill in the holes, you can miss the postseason. Like we saw what happened to the Mets. The reason they missed the postseason is because they had no starting pitching. They had to call Jonah Tong up, who wasn't ready, and they might have crushed his development simply because they weren't out in front and made sure they had enough starting pitching depth before the 2025 season. I do not want the Phillies to make that mistake. Now, this is not an episode to where I'm glamoring to trade Edmundo Sosa. I love me some Edmundo Sosa. I think he's a very valuable baseball player to a team trying to win a championship, but I'm just looking at all the factors of, we have Ada Miller ready to go. We have Stott, we have Turner, we have Bohm, to where I think if you can get starting pitching depth value for Edmundo Sosa, you have to do it every day and twice on Sunday. But let's get into, if he doesn't get traded, which I would be fine with, again, love me some Edmundo Sosa, what do I see his role being for the 2026 season? I think he's going to be Edmundo Sosa. I think he's going to have an average anywhere of like 260 to 270, about a 730, 740 OPS, be a really good defender, be able to spell Trey Turner, play against left-handed pitching instead of Stott. I think he can give Bomer a day off at third base. So, yeah, I mean, I don't really think he's going to have a breakout year. I think he's just going to be exactly what Edmundo Sosa has been, and that's been one of the most valuable players depth-wise to the Philadelphia Phillies. And, of course, we crap on Dave Dombrowski a lot. I do it all the time, and I think it's rightfully so. But that trade he made at the 2022 trade deadline, Edmundo Sosa for Jojo Romero, was one of his best moves he's ever made. But that'll do it for this episode of Baseball for Maniacs. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think Edmundo Sosa should get traded? I think most of the reaction is going to be no. Um, but I think I laid out the reasons why Edmundo Sosa could get traded to where it really does benefit the Philadelphia Phillies, not only this year, but in the long run, due to his impending free agency. But let me know what you guys think. I love talking Phillies baseball with you guys. I love getting your different opinions. But let me know what you guys think about Edmundo Sosa, and you guys have a good one.